Me and my girl out for a 4-mile run. 11-year-old running with a dad with a champ. Miami. Yes, get it, Venezuela.
What's good, family? Smash the like button and subscribe. So, as you might have seen by the title, your boy the YB has received some exclusive proprietary information from one of his sources within Tyson Fury's camp. And they're telling me, listen, they told me earlier this morning, Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3 is locked in for July 24th. Now, again, that's what my source was telling me earlier this morning. Tyson Fury himself, as you see on your screen right now, has also reiterated that by essentially sharing a post saying Wilder versus Fury 3 locked in Las Vegas on July 24th. Now, bottom line is they're fighting July 24th. And before we go on to and give my quick take on that, I want to say that it's looking kind of peak. Not looking, it is peak for you AJ and Fury fans right now. You man was gassing the place up. Oh, YB, it's not over. And Eddie Hearn going to do, step aside. I tried to tell you. Number one, Wilder don't want step aside. But most importantly, number two, Fury had no intention of ever paying any. Do you understand? Fury made up the $20 million alleged offer Wilder sent. He made up a big number so he could turn down a big number. Because guess what? Fury was never going to say, Deontay Wilder, here, 500 grand, step aside. He was never going to say 500 grand, was he? Because everyone would be saying, why don't you just pay the 500 grand? He was always going to pick a stupid number. Now some fans are saying, well, YB, he's getting paid $100 million, why don't... He ain't going to pay it. Why would he pay it for? Don't make no sense to pay it. In his mind, he can beat Wilder. No, I'd like to think he can beat Wilder, but end of the day, the bottom line is, whether he believes he can beat Wilder or not, we know now the judges ordered him to fight Wilder by September 15th. He can't get around that. He's going to have to fight, and even if he pays him, he ends up having to fight Wilder anyway, so he can't be scared to fight Wilder, because if he was, well, he's got to fight him. And actually, I'm hearing some things now, some people, Fury's going to retire. Listen, you know what, we'll get to that in its own right. End of the day, Fury, Wilder, 24th of July. Now what I will say is, this is somewhat good news because, you might know, I never expected AJ and Wilder to happen anyway. Sorry, AJ and Fury to happen anyway, but the reason it's good is that it's sooner rather than later. That's only 2 months away. Which means that the judge had it September 15th. That right there is deadline from the court. But the quicker this gets done, the better. And that's why I said, listen, this fight should have happened July 24th, 2020. That's when it should have happened. Literally. Should have happened last year. That said, we're here now. The good news is, July 24th means that, really, AJ and Fury can happen in November. Assuming November, December, which is what they're now talking about, December fight. So really, AJ and Fury was barely, the way they were talking about AJ and Fury, what was it, August 24th or something? And that was on the lucky side. Some people were saying, it might nick into September. So really, what have we lost here? Assuming Fury wins, AJ and Fury will fight December. And to be honest, if Wilder and Fury are fighting in July, there's no reason really they couldn't fight October, November. Obviously, depending on how aggressive the fight is. If Fury and Wilder ends up being like the second fight, if the third fight, the trilogy ends up being like the second fight, there's no reason Fury can't hop straight back in. I'm thinking of August or whatever. Not sorry, August. I mean October. But either way, they're talking about locking it in December. I think if I was Team AJ and Team Fury, I'd keep that date variable for now. What does it matter to lock it in? Then again, you could also argue, well, what's the point? Who cares if it's October or December? In terms of rushing things. Because in reality, AJ going to fight Usyk. That gets that out of the way. That was always nicking around the place. Because I'm hearing one of the reasons. Let's not forget, AJ and Fury was supposed to be a two-time fight. A series. A fight 1 and a fight 2. But I'm hearing one of the reasons they had to reduce it to a 1-fight deal was because of the WBO. WBO didn't want to, obviously, because a 2-fight deal means a year. The WBO didn't want Usyk to be sitting around for a year. So they were only going to allow 1 fight. Which means now, with Usyk out the way, with Wilder out the way, assuming Fury wins, we're now clear. Clear to have a good set of fights with no goofiness going on around the place. So really, again, AJ and Fury was only ever going to happen on August. Now it's December. How many months is that? Now it's December. So we've got August, September, October, November. 4 months. 4 months later than it should have been. Well, is that the end of the world? Not really. And as I've explained to you, man, in terms of the boxing spirits, in terms of the boxing gods are happy, or happier at least. Now they would have been ultimately 10 out of 10 happy if this fight had happened last year. But AJ and Fury happening without the Wilder beef being resolved, I think it has a little asterisk next to it, in my opinion. We don't know, in my opinion, in the boxing god's opinion, in the boxing spirit's opinion, we don't know who is the undisputed WBC champion. Yes, Fury beat him good and proper, turned him over, turned him out, but he wanted a rematch clause. He wanted to execute it. Now, as I've explained many times before, when AJ whooped Vlad, yeah, there was after AJ beat Vlad once, he was the undisputed WBA and IBF champion. And WBO, I believe. No, sorry. At that point in time, he was only the WBA and the IBF champion at that point in time. He hadn't beat Joseph Parker then. But my point is, when he beat Vlad, he was the undisputed. The reason why that is the case, well, number one, Vlad wasn't the belt holder. But even so, Vlad didn't want no rematch. Fury is not the undisputed WBC champion, because he has a claim against it. Wilder has a contract. Fury would have never got that belt if he hadn't signed the contract. And that contract said, the loser gets some get back. So, for AJ and Fury to fight, whatever happens there, Wilder does have a level of claim, if that makes sense. If the Wilder and Fury series isn't cleared up, and for some people, step aside, and that stuff, it just makes it messy. If AJ beats Fury, yeah, and Fury hasn't properly filled in Wilder yet, Wilder can sit there and say, and not even just say, again, on principle, he can say, Fury never really beat me. Fill him in proper. If Fury knocks out, or even if he beats him, bottom line is, if Fury beats Wilder in July, we then have an undisputed. There's no confusion. Wilder will be well and truly filled in for him. Doing it once, we can make excuses. Same as Ruiz. Let's not forget that. Ruiz had the same thing. Ruiz, yeah, you beat AJ, but you're not the undisputed champ yet. To be the undisputed AJ cheekbuster, you have to do it twice. Because anyone, especially a champion, anyone can have a bad day. If you do it twice, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure the Wilder fangirls, he needs to do it 6 times. No, well, to be fair, from what I'm hearing, Wilder versus Fury 6 is in the pipeline. Come into a century near you. But that's for another day as well. Listen, end of the day, Wilder versus Fury versus Wilder, July 24th, 2 months away. And the good thing is about this as well, at least we know we're getting it. What people don't understand here is, yeah, people are acting as if that's another thing people have skipped over. People were acting as if AJ and Fury was already locked in. Do you understand? At least Wilder and Fury will actually get that in July. The way people are carrying on and assuming, IB, step aside for a fight. We don't even know what's going to happen. We didn't even, people are forgetting that AJ and Fury wasn't signed. Let's not make out that it was done and this is to put a thing in it. It wasn't done. Yeah, it wasn't done. You man got a short memory about the whole 85% and 15%. Yes, Fury came out and hyped it up, but he came out and hyped it up once he knew that he had an exit door planned out. Fury was still sitting there and not committing. So let's not, I love how it's crazy. This whole announcement, this whole mediation result, this whole court ruling came out, and all of a sudden, everyone started worrying about, step aside. How can we put this AJ and Fury fight on? As if it was a done deal. It wasn't done. And have you not noticed, let's not forget, 2 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago, Eddie Hearn saying, yeah, you know what, I don't want to spoil it. On the Monday, 2 weeks ago, yeah? I don't want to spoil it, guys, but on Saturday we're going to announce, I want there to be at least a little bit of anticipation. Saturday comes. Not even a bit gets announced. 2 weeks down the line, I'm hopefully next week. This was going to drag on until July. And then what was it going to be? God knows what. So the end of the day, yeah, at least we're going to get the Wilder and Fury fight. That's tied up, and then no one's going to have no excuses, and that's why it's important, because not only does the whole Wilder thing get settled, but also all the little questions that are about. For example, I'm inactive. Let's not forget that. Fury, I'm inactive. Fury had all these little built-in excuses. I'm inactive, and he had all these little excuses why not to sign, or if he does sign, why he can lose. Because once the Wilder thing's done, that means Fury isn't inactive anymore, and also it means he doesn't have an excuse not to sign. Because all this time now, yeah, all these months, a large part of the excuse has been for Fury not signing. We don't know about the legal situation. So now, come July 25th, assuming Fury wins, guess what? On July 25th, Fury will not be able to say, I can't sign because I'm inactive and I need some warm-up fights. He will not be able to say, I can't sign because of the mediation. So on July 25th, it gets signed, isn't it? On July 25th, assuming Fury wins, the AJ fight gets signed. No ifs, no buts, no waitings. But listen, you best believe the YB, if it doesn't get signed within 2 weeks, let's not forget, when AJ beat Pulev, AJ said to Eddie Hearn, hey, Eddie, get this done within a month. This fight gets done within 4 weeks. I'm telling you now, if AJ, I'm going to give him 4 weeks, not 2. Let me give him 4. If AJ and Fury isn't signed 4 weeks after the Wilder fight, so August 24th, if it's not signed, it's not happening. Let me tell you, man, right now again. Because given all this run around, if it's not done by August 24th, it's not happening. 100%. No way it's happening. Because there should be no roadworks, no uncertainty. Especially since it's been going on for 6 months. And what I find the most funny, or the most ironic is, wait a minute, AJ and Fury were negotiating for 6 months and couldn't get nowhere. AJ and Wilder, been talked about since Monday, it's done. 4 days. 4 days. And that's, again, I was trying to, a lot of you goofy fans, a lot of you goofy AJ Fury lovers, I was trying to tell you guys, listen, what did we know? When Wilder and Fury fought for the first 7 times, did we ever hear about any of this back and forth in negotiations? No. It's got signed, it's got locked in, boom, done. 6-fight deal, 17-fight deal. Yeah? 10-year contract. Wilder and Fury signed a magical 10-year contract. In between all of these 17-fight contracts, yeah? How many times did we hear about back and forth? How many times do we see Frank Warren come out and say, it's 85%. 85%, Fury's 85% signed. We didn't hear none of it. It was done. There was no delay, no nothing. It was done. Because guess what? Fury wanted to do it. And again, magically enough, what did we know about Fury last year when he didn't want to fight Wilder? We need fans and we can't get the crowds in. We need more money. We couldn't possibly do it without fans. So that there sums Fury up. When Fury wants to do something, it gets done immediately. Fury, because he had to fight listen, Fury over the last few months has been backed into a corner. It's called the big AJ corner. It's called the 6'5" Africanulese corner. That's where Fury's been. That's why Fury is throwing his toys at the pram. Talking about, I can't sleep. I'm tired. I need a break. Because AJ had him in the corner, yeah, and was hanging at the back of him. AJ's been hanging at the back of Fury for the last 6 months. And it's drived his head in. So when this mediation result came through, the weight off of Fury's shoulders, breathing a sigh of relief, and that's why the Wilder thing got signed within 4 days, because he's so elated. Thank God. Yes, I didn't want to have to fight Wilder, but you know what? The fact that I was thinking I was gonna have to be put on the AJ chopping block, Wilder is a blessing. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? Fury's had this 6'5" Africanulese hanging over him for 6 months, hanging at the back of him for 6 months. So now the fact that the judge has given him an exit clause with the Wilder thing, he's grateful to sign that. Yes, I didn't want to sign the Wilder fight, but you know what? Because it's bailed me out of this thing, I'm grateful to sign it, and that's why it's been signed. Signed within 4 days, record. We haven't heard no back and forth. We haven't heard no 85-15%. Just done. So again, you best believe, guys, AJ and if Fury and Wilder can get done in 4 days, you best believe, when come July 25th, if in 2 weeks it's not done, it's not happening. I'm going to call it 2 weeks, you know, because it don't make no sense to me. This was done in 4 days. They found an event. They found everything within 4 days. Eddie Hearn been working for 6 months and couldn't get to this point. So don't at me. Don't at me. 2 weeks after July 24th, if it's not done, don't worry about apologies. I'm telling you now. In fact, don't even ask my opinion. You just know it's not happening. Because Fury's, I can read him like a book. Too easy to read. Sloppy looking ass. Yeah? Hypes things up and then... Wait, how has it been locked in already? My man was screaming about AJ. And another thing you'll notice about proof that Fury's scared of AJ is... Look at his reaction. You haven't heard of no... Oh man, I'm really disappointed. I thought I was going to get to fill AJ in. You notice how he's quickly slid onto the Fury fight. Sorry, slid onto the Wilder fight now. Like as if nothing's happened. Imagine, yeah, if you was really building up for an AJ fight. The biggest fight of the year, and you're really looking forward to it. And it's been a big shock and it's been pulled from underneath you. Pulled from underneath you? Fury is celebrating. Oh, he is. He's celebrating because he's relieved. He's relieved. Thank God he don't have to fight AJ. And that's what his actions are showing as well. Absolute relief and elation. Sitting here posting, oh look guys, who's going to win, me or Wilder? What happened to you and AJ? You was telling us that was happening. No? You're not going to mourn that one? No, you best believe he's not going to mourn that one. He's buzzing. He's buzzing, he's been bailed out. And before I go, I want to just quickly mention this, that there is a chance, of course, that Fury Wilder wins. This really is the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is Wilder wins. Why? Because Fury will have a rematch clause, no doubt. There's no way Fury is going to allow Wilder to beat him and there not be a rematch clause. Now, there won't be a rematch clause on Wilder's side, if that makes sense. If Fury wins, it's over. If Fury wins, it's over. Fury can fight AJ. But if Wilder wins, it's not over. Fury will have a rematch clause because he's now the champion. So if Wilder wins, that will lead to a fourth and final fight. That is the worst case scenario because at best they will then fight in December, which means that we're going into 2022 for the AJ fight versus the winner. So really, we need, like, athletically speaking, it will be what it will be. But for the speed sake of things, Fury needs to win this fight. But at the end of the day, it don't matter what the fans want. The way that boxing is today, I wouldn't be surprised if Wilder wins, to be fair. We're going to find out, though.